this has more feel of a team than you ever felt last year. I don't know what you make of that. I'm just telling you, watching, that was an enthusiastic group of guys getting ready to go to work. And I've been, this is the 12th of 12 camps. And Mike, how many times have I said tired legs in the last 5 camps?
Probably about as often as you make fun of me.
Yeah, exactly. So for that enthusiasm, I don't know if it's because there's something going on in the air, but that was lends a person to have some optimism. Lends a person to have some optimism for Cal.
So the best stretching team in the league you've seen so far?
No. I'm just, it wasn't the stretch, it was the enthusiasm. The attention to detail with the synchronized stuff. There was guys that were into it. Certainly when you look out there and see Brendan Scarlett back in uniform and Mustafa Jalil back in uniform, Stephen McClure back in uniform, that always is a good place to start. And I think the fact that Jared is clearly the guy, it's not a competition anymore. It's a guy going to take the next step in the evolution of the quarterback, and there's a bunch of very talented receivers that all understand the system. I think all that spells well. And the running back line, I don't know if that kid from Texas is as good as he looks, but if he's close, he's in Weary. If he's as good as he looks, that spells good stuff for the Bears as well.
Is one of their big problems when you pick the tough time in Pac-10 annals to Pac-12 annals to be bad?
You get what you get, right? I give you an example. I went 23-9 as a coach in the Pac-10 at Washington. I got to UCLA and I'm looking. I go, where are all the guys? And so we struggled. I think I went 21 and 29 at my time at UCLA. But it's part of what you do. You have to build it. The good news for Sonny is he's got a quarterback to build it around, and a guy who will be here as he continues to build it around. So if they can, the other good news for Sonny is he was able to get admissions to give him some junior college help. I think the number he gave me was 27 guys that had eligibility left aren't here on this roster from a year ago. That's a large number in a world where there's no free agency. The only thing akin to free agency in the world of college athletics is junior college kids. So to get 8 or 9 of those guys that all are in the 2 deep right now is a godsend. I mean, that had to happen for them to have a chance.
So you've got a new situation up in Washington. What were your impressions of the job early on that Coach Peterson's doing up there, and what is that team going to look like this year? There's a lot of question marks surrounding them.
We went to Washington, and the very next day we went to USC, so I told Sark he left a really good football team. There's a lot of great-looking kids. Probably the best they've looked in the front 7 in a decade. They've got, I think that I heard that it has been since 2001 since an offensive or a defensive lineman has been made first team All Pac-12 in Washington. And yet Danny Shelton on the defensive side, Haoli Kikaha, those 2 guys are probably favorites in that category. And then you look on the offensive line, there's a kid by the name of Ben Reba that looks like a guy that you can count on. So I think that they have improved immensely. With a new staff, you always look, and because your styles are different in terms of what you're recruiting. So Chris Peterson is an accomplished coach. Win 92 games in his time at Boise, 92-12, just to give you an idea. And 5 of those losses were last year. You don't do that unless you're really good at what you do. So he knows what he's looking for. There'll be some transition, just like there always is whenever you're changing cultures, but they've got a nice base to start with. And, Shaq Thompson and John Timo at that linebacker position. Marcus Peters is a shutdown corner. He's a really good-looking kid. There's a great freshman up there by the name of Buda Baker. I think is going to have an impact on that football team. They've got the Oregon receivers, those prototype guys, John Ross, Jadon Mickens. They actually have more Oregon receivers than Oregon has right now, as does Cal. you know, when I was at Oregon, I was like, where are all the little fast guys, the space guys? They've been kind of depleted. So it'll be interesting to see if Marcus Mariota has enough around him.
Is the resurrection at Washington State for real?
They have all 8 of their top receivers back. Connor Halliday, I love, and you know, so yeah. Question again, defense. You know, the front looks good. They got a kid by the name of Xavier Cooper in the front that's a really good-looking kid. Daryl Monroe's a solid linebacker in the middle, good leader. But that to me is their Achilles heel, and they've lost a lot of experience in the back end. You know, Dayon Buchanan's no longer there. So to me, whether or not they can still, you know, hold people down. You know, this conference, as a conference, averaged 33 points a game in conference play. So, and Stanford in that era gave up 19. You know, so to me, you have to be able to hold down. Now, conversely, Cal gave up 45. You know, so if you can keep guys in the 20s, 28, 27, you're going to be in games. And that to me is where these guys got to get games to the fourth quarter.
Could this team be 100 times better and still maybe only win 4 games, given the state you've seen the rest of the Pac-12?
Yeah, that's entirely possible. But I think what fans want is games to be still games, and they get to the fourth quarter. And if they can stay healthy, in particular on defense, because they're not as deep as the great teams probably are. If they can stay healthy and get games to the fourth quarter, then you got a quarterback that can make things happen. You know, to me, for them to win 4, 5, 6 games this year would be a tremendous accomplishment.
Oregon State lost their best player, and they're always a mystery coming into a season, and they usually start slow. What did you see up at their camp?
To me, the strength of their team is their tight end position. They've got a great quarterback, a guy who's been around. He's not going to beat you with his legs, so they're going to have to be able to run the ball. I think last year was an aberration for a Mike Riley team to have the kind of success throwing without the running thing. I think they average only 92 yards a game rushing. That's got to improve. They've got to get that number. Now, the last 2 games, they averaged over 200, again in the Civil War and then in the bowl win over Boise. So they got to get Storm Woods, Teron Ward back going. They have this group of tight ends that will give a lot of different formational looks to the opposing defenses. And they've got a kid by the name of Caleb Smith. Remember that name. He's a freak. He can be Zach Ertz. He can be Kobe Fleener. He can be Todd Heap. That's who he reminded me of. I think you're going to see a lot of him. They're smart enough to figure out that formational stuff to create some one-on-one matchups for him.
Stanford lost a lot of key guys on defense. How are they going to bounce back?
They look terrific. You know, if you're just looking at the eyeball test, they're the best-looking team in the conference in terms of size. The SC maybe a close second, but they just looked that big guy. Offensive line, I know, missing 3 starters from a year ago. Didn't look like they were missing anybody. They look terrific in the front. They got a tight end themselves that will replace those guys I just mentioned, and Dalton Schultz, a freshman that I think is going to end up being a key ingredient in their running game. Then they, defensively, I think they look pretty good. They've got a very good secondary. Alex Carter at corner and Jordan Williamson are big-time players. They're leaders. They're smart guys. Linebacker. What was number 44's name? The kid from down in like Palmdale or something. Peter. I keep thinking. Anyway, remember 44 at Stanford. That guy, I couldn't take my eyes off. And then you got Henry Anderson up front, great leader, and Botters. And those guys have played a lot of football. The question that's interesting in this league, we've got 5 teams that the country thinks are really in the race for the Final Four. 3 of them, Oregon, Stanford, and UCLA, have first-time defensive coordinators. Lance Anderson, Jeff Ulbrich, and Don Pelham. All 3 are doing it for the first time. So it'll be interesting to see how they go and evolve as coordinators in play callers.
Who do you like top 2 or so in the South?
I've got UCLA and SC. I think Arizona State will be in the mix, but I think there's a lot of holes to fill defensively. I know Todd Graham loves that, but I don't know that they have a a guy that can get open in man-to-man on offense. That concerns me. They got big, good-looking guys. I love Jalen Strong, 1,000-yard receiver, but he's a body that leans on guys. I'm not sure he's a separator. DJ Foster was that guy a year ago. Well, now he's their #1 back. Arizona has everything you want outside. They're another team that has those Oregon receivers, but they're not. Samaji Grant, Nate Phillips, those guys are really, really special players. Then you got Austin Hill back, you got a kid from Texas, Caleb Jones, you got Devontae Neal from Notre Dame, David Richards back. I mean, they got all these great looking guys like Washington State has. They just don't have that trigger man. But if you're long on Arizona, it's okay, because Pat White at West Virginia, Denard Robinson at Michigan, they both kind of blossomed early in their time, as did Matt Scott and B.J. Denker. So Rich Rod can get those guys going. He just has to decide pretty quickly so he can get them a lot of reps.
What made him recapture his magic? I mean, he really just, it didn't seem like a good fit at Michigan, but he
well,
seems to be back on
offensively
track.
they were fine at Michigan. They just didn't play any defense. And I think, it's difficult as a coach to say it when you get there and say, I don't have any players. You can say it now to coaches in the back rooms. So he never made the excuse, but they were playing with some walk-ons at Michigan. And sometimes when guys get to the end of a career, as Lloyd Carr did, it can happen where you just aren't on top of that recruiting. You're not restocking the same way. And then you have a transition where a new coach comes in, there's always a little bit of attrition then, and all of a sudden you end up with not enough guys.
It somewhat happened to Cal too.
It happened to me at UCLA. It happened to Sonny last year.
They had no juniors and seniors out there.
There's not guys here, and it just ends up you can find yourself in harm's way, and then you get a couple injuries. Now you're really in harm's way.
My last question, in your estimation, what does Cal need to do to turn it around this year?
Well, I think they're doing it. They've got the right attitude. I felt the attitude immediately. They certainly have the skill. I think they need to find a running game. I think they need to take pressure off of Goff. He shouldn't be throwing it 50 times a game. He can't be taking as many sacks as he took a year ago. He needs to, and it's not just sacks; it's hits. They need to find a running game. And like I said, they're really high on these two freshman backs. Muhammad showed some burst here towards the end. I know they like Lasco, so I think that if they can put the running game together, show some measure of balance, play a field position game, limit the amount of plays the defense has to play. I think their first group looks really good, but they're not deep there. And kind of like Sarkisian down at SC, I mean, you want to play this fast tempo stuff, but you got to understand that means your defense is playing up tempo too. How many snaps can they afford to play? So that's a catch-22 for those guys who like to be prolific on offense.
Are you very familiar with Kaufman?
I don't know Art. I'm aware of his work. It's a unique situation to find yourself at your fourth school in 4 years. And not to bring a bunch of assistants with you is another challenge, because he's having not only to teach the team, he's got to teach the staff exactly how he wants things coached. If you don't have 100% buy-in, that can be really challenging. But hopefully Sonny's got that 100% buy-in. Hopefully they get off to a great start. Love to see him beat a Big Ten opponent in week 1.
Awesome. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Take care.